Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday. That means it's time for the Wrestling Inc. Monday Night Raw after show. And have we got a show for you? Kofi Kingston and Ivar put on a classic. Becky Lynch is defending titles, and it looks like we are not going to get Judgment Jey Uso. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce the crew. I'm Jack Farmer, being joined by the Spar with LaBar champion, Justin LaBar, and the returning special guest. You're going to be a special guest multiple times. How many times are you going to be a special guest, Matt Koon? I don't know, but you're a special guest again tonight. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys doing? And how are you guys doing out there? Thanks for tuning in. We got lots to talk about. Jack, I'm excited about joining you. Justin, always, for a long time, would love to hear what you've had to say. So I can't wait to get started.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, let us know how you guys are doing in the chat. I see that Issa has a coordinated attack on me in the chat. That's all good.
Coordinated attack. I'm watching that. She took her shoe off and is whipping you in the butt. I mean,
yeah. What is this? I come in, I say hello, I look at the chat, and it's all these attacks on me. If you're listening later. I'm not even going to repeat what they're saying, but Justin, it's looking like my fantasy football team's going 2-0. How are you?
I'm going to be 1-1. Not strong enough this week. I had J.K. Dobbins, who got hurt the first week, so I was thin on running backs this week, and Patrick Mahomes is still not playing like Patrick Mahomes, at least from fantasy value standpoint. But it's okay, because in the real world, my Washington Redskins football team Commanders are 2-0.
Matt,
and I was in Baltimore. And the Baltimore Orioles have been my lifelong baseball team. I got to see them have an awesome game Saturday, and they are officially mathematically in the postseason for the first time in 7 years. So it's going good for me in the real world sports. Fantasy, not so much.
Matt, are you a football guy? Do you got a fantasy football team, or do you have a real team you follow?
I wish I was. Growing up in Southern California, we got kind of screwed at my time for football teams. The Raiders left. The Rams were terrible. So I followed a little team that had some success called the LA Lakers, and I just kind of stayed with that,
Yeah, well, once you become a Lakers fan, it's hard to really get interested in just about anyone else.
Especially in the 80s.
yeah. Lakers are a tough act to follow, but my fantasy football team's still looking pretty good. I asked ChatGPT if teams were heel or face, and they said the Seahawks are heels, and they said that the Commanders... They're in catering, Justin. I'm sorry.
Oof. Ouch.
To be fair, its cutoff date is like 2021, so it doesn't look at the past few years.
Oh, well, yeah. That would be fair enough.
Just the previous 25. I live in the area, so I'm aware of the Commanders' woes since Mark Rippon led him to the Super Bowl like 75 years ago.
Yeah, our last Super Bowl was the season of 92. After that, it's been... But hey, the new ownership, dickhead owner's gone. It's a new day. Yes, it is.
Well, let's get into some news. Of course, if you're watching, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You guys, I don't know if you heard, but on Friday, The Rock decided to pop into SmackDown unannounced.
Who?
The Rock. If you haven't been watching wrestling for over 20 years, you may not know who The Rock is.
You may know him better as Black Adam, the greatest superhero in the greatest superhero movie of all time.
Yes, that's how most people know him, as Black Adam. I think that's what most people call him that now.
Now I know who you're talking about. Thank you. He's a wrestling fan.
Yeah, he's a big fan of wrestling. I think all his dreams came true. He got to share the ring with Austin Theory. I have a feeling he was so nervous in that ring.
Would they stop wasting time on these celebrities and let the real wrestlers get some ring time?
Yeah, I don't like how they go all Hollywood trying to get actors in there. Just give us the guys who can do the collar and elbows.
And at least somebody with some size. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, someone who looks like they can fight. Someone with some bulk to them.
Right.
Instead of this this guy. But on the latest episode of the Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer provided some details about The Rock returning. Said, quote, well, he was there for the football game, the Colorado State game. He was there on the sidelines the next day. So he was there for the football game in Boulder, Colorado, and Denver's right there. So it all made sense. Of course, before that, he was talking to Pat McAfee about how it was apparently locked in that he was going to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39, but they couldn't nail down exactly what the thing was he was going to do. Meltzer then said that Dallas was a possibility, but with LA scheduled, that he wanted to do LA because it was SoFi Stadium and all that good stuff. But then that obviously didn't happen. Now there's a writer's strike, and we don't know how long that's going to last. But that is obviously getting everyone fantasy booking. Justin, I always like to go to you first for the news items. My question to you about The Rock is, do you think him showing up and this renewed energy he may have with WWE, is this because Endeavor is now involved and we've got a bigger machine behind everything? Or is this just the writer's strike giving The Rock free time?
I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. I think he did show up and he was on Pat McAfee's show on Friday, which I was watching, which took place there as you mentioned in Colorado. And I remember as I'm watching this that afternoon, I remember thinking, wow, they're there in Colorado for that, and SmackDown's in Denver. Like that could. I wonder if something would happen. And then a little bit later on the internet, there started being some. I think Sean Ross Sapp was the first one to say this is something he'd heard, but he was still trying to get confirmation. So I think, first off, I think it's just the fact that The Rock, wanted to be there, for the football game, and then SmackDown's there. Obviously, Nick Khan and WWE's talked about they've known each other since they were kids, all on top of the relationship that Rock's had with Vince and the rest of WWE. And then, writer's strike, so maybe some time's opening up. Rock did say when he was giving the explanation about the whole Roman Reigns match not happening, he'd even said to Pat McAfee, it's not so much schedule, because I can still kind of control schedule. He really got in and he gave us this big story about it creatively. Like they wanted it to really mean something. And first off, I commend Pat and the crew for kind of pressing Rock. You have Rock there with a live mic, like ask him the questions that we all want to know. It's not like Rock's often on a live mic with somebody else who's like McAfee, who's relevant in pop culture, but also has worked WrestleManias. So I commend them for asking. I don't know if I love The Rock's answer. I'm not sure if it's a real answer or not. The irony of The Rock's answer is he basically says that the creative wasn't there. That wasn't satisfying, which is very ironic considering most wrestling fans would say having the Rock versus Roman Reigns match with all the bloodline stuff and everything going on is a creative, low-hanging fruit slam dunk that you don't need to reinvent the creative wheel, so to speak. So the explanation is ironic. I don't know if that's the real answer. Because here's something to remember is that the way he spoke about it was, okay, we're not going to do in Dallas. We want to do in LA, which I think we all agree. LA made sense. Yeah, you can go to Dallas. You can go try to sell out Cowboy Stadium, but LA made sense given it's LA and it's Hollywood. What happened in between that Dallas WrestleMania and that LA WrestleMania?
Bingo. 100%.
You know where I'm going, Matt. What happened? Vince McMahon had a terrible year from a public image standpoint. So I'd have to wonder if I'm The Rock, not a dumb guy, very successful. If you're going to stop and say, do I want to be, especially Vince comes right back, right about as the new year hits, right about as 2023 hits. That's right when Vince comes back in after a lot of bad PR all in 2022. And that's right about as you're getting ready to enter in Rumble and Road to Mania. So it's at that point you would need to have the Mania main event locked down. And so I wonder, did Rock hesitate at that point saying, I don't know if this is the best look for my brand right now?
Yeah, Matt, it's there's a lot of things that I could have seen being a little bit of a hiccup there. Also, from The Rock's standpoint, he was kind of taking some L's himself, kind of leading up to that with Black Adam not being that successful financially. There was some chatter about The Rock and how he was interacting with the movie makers over at DC and all that. A lot of speculation as to what could have happened between him being at WrestleMania and not being at WrestleMania.
I think, no matter what happens, no matter what disagreements he gets in with what Grip or with DC Creative or whatever, he's still the biggest name in wrestling. He's still welcome back. And I go a little bit, Justin and I are a lot on the same page. I go a little bit even more cynical. The relationship he has with Nick Khan and Vince McMahon, at one point, it looked like maybe somebody else was going to be running the show. At one point, it looked like maybe someone else was in charge of creative. And now that person is no longer with the company or in a position of power the way he was. And the first week that happened, he's on SmackDown. So it seems to me that for whatever reason, perhaps it has to do with personnel at the top, the ones who make the decisions. For whatever reason, it seems like The Rock and Ella and WWE are in good graces, but also like this whole Boulder thing. The Rock has been within a stone's throw of a wrestling show the last few years, besides this time. And, LA was it. LA was supposed to be it. LA made the most sense. You can bend it around as much as you want to be Philly or whatever, but it was supposed to be LA. Something happened, and to Justin's point, those reasons sound hinky at best. You got creative reasons. Oh no, scheduling reasons at first. Now it's creative reasons. Guess what the creative is? Whatever The Rock says it is. That's what the creative is. And that's the way it'll be. But the creative probably has more to do with who he felt was in creative control, who was in power. And now he likes what he sees. His childhood buddy is at a big point in the company, as is the man who brought him in the company, Vince. So I would say look forward to The Rock against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40.
Who do you got winning, Matt, since you threw it out there? You think
Probably
Rock comes back and takes an L?
Probably Roman. Yeah, I think Roman gets it, and I think they're able to convince Rock to do that because Rock ain't wrestling too many more matches.
And while we're fantasy booking, or not fantasy, well, I guess while we all have the pencil here and we're booking out, I think if they, I agree with Matt. I think night one you could see Roman versus Rock. And then I think you could also have Roman versus Cody on a night two if that was still part of the plan. And I think Roman Reigns being the first person ever to main event both nights of a WrestleMania would be the history-making kind of stat that would be very on brand for the Roman Reigns resume, for him to be the first man to close out both nights of WrestleMania.
Yeah, in my perfect world, this is just taking the pencil. In my perfect world, it is the bloodline for the title, Rock versus Roman, night one, with Cena versus Cody underneath it for number one contendership. Winner's face, night two. Cody still gets his victory Sunday night. Story gets finished. Cody beats Cena for night one, then beats Roman night two. Roman gets the win over The Rock. Roman gets to get a vacation. Cody gets the title. Rock gets to wrestle. Win, win, win.
So we have Justin's booking, Matt's booking. Everyone, I want you to, in the chat, let me know whose you prefer. My idea would be, let's just get down to what people really want to see. Main event, night two, WrestleMania, The Rock versus Akira Tozawa. That's what we all want to see, everybody. Let's get it going. No? Just me.
You never know.
No, I think I do know that's not happening. Don't worry, Akira. I'm still your biggest cheerleader. We got more news about people who might end up being in WWE, and that's Jade Cargill. Apparently, she has been removed from the AEW roster page. However, it's unlikely she'll appear on NXT this week because she has apparently flown back to Georgia. Matt, as far as we know, no contract has been signed by Jade Cargill for any wrestling company. But I have to imagine that if WWE is able to get Jade Cargill, that is quite a pickup for WWE.
It is, and I think we all know it's going to happen. It seems to be a foregone conclusion. But it's a concern for Tony Khan in that it's almost like anybody who left AEW wouldn't be a huge loss for AEW, but would be a huge gain for WWE, which seems very TNA-ish. It seems very Impact-ish, that let's say Chris Jericho left AEW. I mean, who cares, right? Like he's fine, but if he went to WWE, they'd make a big deal. He would be a huge gain. So Tony Khan and AEW need to figure out how to make AEW look less like a quick stop on the way to WWE, because to this day, people don't grow up wanting to be a pro wrestler and wanting to be on Dynamite. They want to be on Raw. They want to be on SmackDown. They want to be on the big show. If you're a veteran, FTR, Daniel Bryan, the schedule is enticing. The money's enticing. But if you're a Jade Cargill or anybody like a Jade Cargill, an MJF, a Jungle Boy, anybody young, they want to go to WWE. How would you not?
Yeah, Matt, I've said the same thing several times in this program. I think I've used MJF as an example, and you're right. That's the advantage that WWE has of having, 5 decades a head start. is that, you're a little wall away. You might have some rarities like a Darby Allin, but for the most part, you're years away from establishing Double or Nothing or All In or All Out to being something that enough guys and girls grow up on, saying, okay, that's my goal. You still have the talent that's out there right now that grew up watching WrestleMania, dreaming, when they were puking and doing the suicides and doing and doing back bumps 100 times in a row, training to be a wrestler. They had the drive of WrestleMania. So you're exactly right. And I think also with Jade Cargill, you look at the way WWE has helped create stars. You look at somebody like The Rock. You look at John Cena. You look at the crossover that WWE has been able to have on the level they do. Again, because of how ingrained they are in the culture, they've had a 50-year head start. And I think to a Jade Cargill, that's also very attractive of what they could do. WWE is a marketing machine. They are a marketing juggernaut, and what they could do with her beyond just bumps in the ring. The sky truly is the limit. So, I agree. I think it's inevitable that she's going to be on WWE program sooner rather than later. My question is, why does she loses that TBS championship, takes some time off, I guess, disappears from TV. Why bring her back to have her lose on a taped show any which way of Rampage that hardly anybody's watching anymore? If you know that she's on her way out, her contract's winding down, and you hear this, if you're Tony Khan, you hear the scuttlebutt, or maybe she straight up told Tony, I'm going there. Keep her out of sight, out of mind. Why do you bring her back on the TV and remind people who might be attracted to her as a character and as a and then now they can all hop on the bandwagon to go follow her? Like, why keep her out of sight, out of mind? I don't understand that.
The answer is simple. I mean, it seems simple to me. Tony Khan's just too nice for the wrestling business. Tony Khan is a nice guy. He's a nice guy. And so it seems to me like he brought her back to do the honors that she didn't have to do, but most importantly, to show her she was appreciated and have a good goodbye. And, he was so respectful to William Regal letting him go. He was so, accepting of CM Punk, of everything that was going on. And now he's doing such a right thing by Jade. But man, it's the wrestling business, bro. Like, you've gotten taken advantage by these people, even though you're doing the right thing, even though you're doing things for the right reasons. You think people should follow you and do right by you. That's not the way it works a lot of times. And I think it's just Tony Khan being too nice, such a nice guy to the detriment of his product.
Yeah, it's great to be a nice guy and allow everybody to have the night off if they need it, and help set up travel arrangements to let them all go to a funeral for Wyndham Rotunda. That's using your nice for something that's within reason. We're talking life or death. We're talking bigger than wrestling. But yeah, for the business standpoint, for your business, I don't think that was a good business decision. Made no sense to me to do that.
To play a devil's advocate, though, if you're AEW and you're Tony Khan, you're not going to be able to outbid WWE if someone wants certain wrestlers. And you're not going to be able to match the exposure. You're not going to be able to match the Hollywood connections. So one thing you can do is say, I'm the guy that works with the talent and isn't going to throw you under the bus. That's really one of the only bargaining chips that Tony Khan has. I know
and you're going to have great matches.
And you're going to have great matches. Right. But I know Tony Khan's a billionaire, but at the same time, the money that WWE has is ridiculous that they can use here. And so if you have like WWE who really wanted Cody, who really wanted Jade, AEW is not winning that bidding war. So you have to have something like a culture or a boss or something that makes people go, hey, it may not be as much, but I at least like that guy. If you're not, again, beyond the schedule side of things. I don't know, just play devil's advocate there.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
No, sorry, man. I was just saying, Jack, actually, I think that's maybe a fair point if you're right. Tony Khan's things that he has to offer, as Matt alluded to earlier, an easier schedule, not away from home to the degree and grind that you are in WWE. And look, Tony Khan still has money to offer too. But I think you're right. That may be a thing. It's like, all right, I'm going to be on the road a whole lot if I'm in WWE. I'm going to be dealing with a boss who is legendary for his personality and Vince McMahon. Maybe that is Tony's thought is, hey, I got maybe that is his something, a club he's trying to keep in the bag to be attractive.
I think from the people I've heard, like, money's not really a factor in as much that they basically offer about the same amount. Like, I don't think Tony Khan offered that much more money for Jade. I don't think he offered that much more money for Cody. I think it's everything else. I think you're weighing that schedule, which we keep saying it, but it is significant. It is a significant difference in a schedule. Also, he pays for travel. Also, he puts you up in the hotel. He takes care of all that stuff. It makes it so much easier. You're paying for that versus platform and prestige in your mind. And so I think Jade Cargill, that age, that ability, that look, she knew what she was, and she's smart. So she knew what she's doing the whole time. And good for her.
Although I will say with the schedule, while it is only, while AEW doesn't run a tour of live events in addition to their TV. But I will say, especially now with Punk gone, and if they are going to kind of just be able to like have guys and girls be on Wednesday sometimes, Saturday this time, that does not, you may not be on the road in as many cities. You're not in the rental car as often, but to have to go into a town Tuesday for Wednesday TV, then to leave town Thursday, I guess to go home, only to have to turn back around Friday to get to Saturday's town. That is a little bit for the guys and girls who have families. That's unattractive in its own right.
Yeah, the Wednesday Saturday thing for the same talent is not great for sure, because you get travel days on both sides of those, takes up the whole week. But historically, just doing the one night of Dynamite has been very appealing to wrestlers. But we'll see how that works. That was something I was thinking too, when they start cross-pollinating these shows, like that travel Wednesday and Saturday makes it so that you're pretty much full-time on the road, even more than WWE, the Tuesday through Sunday, or the Monday through Friday, or whichever one you're on.
Oh, and by the way, they're having you go to both shows, so they tend to send so much of the talent to both shows, and there's not a guarantee that you're going to necessarily be used. So it's not even like you're necessarily getting TV time and helping push your merch sales or whatever else. So it's like you're traveling only to, and yes, it's paid for and all that stuff, but you're still away from your family, and you didn't even get to go out there and be on the live show. Maybe so that, again, needing to get a hold of your plans of, do you need this talent here, or can you send them home? Because if I'm a talent having to deal with that Wednesday to Saturday thing, and then I go to Saturday and I'm not used, I'm just sitting around.
Yeah, we have a couple of super chats. Kelvin says, Jade looks like a WWE type athlete talent. It only makes sense she made the jump. I think that you can have any type of talent in either company, but I do think that Jade, I think it wouldn't shock me if she didn't sign with wrestling either way, because she's got a lot of other things going. If she got into movies or something else, it wouldn't shock me either. But gotta feel, if I was a betting man, I'll say we'll see her in NXT sooner.
I think we all know what Kelvin's kind of saying. She is a very striking woman in a very unique look, but also extremely just star quality. Just if you saw her in an airport, she'd pass that airport test. You're like, who is that?
Oh yeah, 100%. And then you imagine the stare downs she could have with like Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez, and everyone else. But Blue Chew also with a super chat, a jack-o'-lantern. It looks like a farmer and a goat. I can't really tell, but I'll assume that it's all good things. Blue Chew, thank you. So
it says Jack Farmer's the goat.
Oh, Jack Farmer's the goat. Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for being able to. It
was a jack-o'-lantern, then a farmer and a goat. I
work with kids, man. I read
Oh man, I feel so old not being able to.
You're like,
to read that.
It's a jack and a farmer and a goat.
You even said your own last name.
What could this possibly be?
I'm pretty sure that was part of a skit on like Saved by the Bell in 1991. I mean,
what does a yellow light mean?
I would be the world's worst spy ever. Like, Jack, here's the code. It's like super obvious. I don't get it. The files are in the computer.
What does the yellow light mean?
Right.
Slow down. What does the yellow light mean?
Well, let's talk about Raw. Before we do, as always, like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're lurking, shout out to all the lurkers out there. Shout out to everybody who is in the chat. MDB999. Yes, boy. Chris Haggerty, Bernie DC, Ricky Zaldivar, Tuck, Graf, Baby Ison, GZDR4EV. I haven't seen you before. Good to see you here. Beer. And Stephen Camp as well. But also I want to give a shout out to Cameron Gill 1761, who is going to be watching us tomorrow from the UK. Can't stay up late and watch the show live. So going to be watching us in a little bit. Also, yes, boy, with a super chat saying, do y'all best Samantha impression announcing Chelsea Green?
I can't do better than that.
Well, Matt, let me hear your best Chelsea Green impression. Samantha Irvin announcing Chelsea Green.
How does she say it? How does she say it?
Chelsea Green.
Chelsea Green. See, I can just be an announcer. Chelsea Green. That's all I got.
Well, you do the decoding. I'll do the Chelsea Green imitations. But that's about as good as we're gonna get. Yes, boy. But let's talk about this show already. We start. Cody Rhodes wants to talk about Jey Uso, but Dom says Jey will be in the Judgment Day soon enough. Cody says Rhea's eyeballing Jey Uso, and this leads to a match between the two. Priest and Finn try to get involved, but Cody still gets the win. After the match, of course, there's about to be a beatdown, but Sammy and KO show up and save Cody, and Cody convinces everyone to give Jey a chance. Matt, first and foremost, I want to get your opinion. Do you think the Urkel Laura Winslow reference is a little past its due expiration date?
I don't know, man. Like, Cody isn't great with the references sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's good in a lot of ways, but sometimes he runs out on those, I will say that although we've seen this kind of thing on WWE TV, I said that last week as well, this was just so carried by the performances. I believed Kevin Owens 100%. I believed Cody 100%. I believed Sammy 100%. I thought it was intriguing. I thought Kevin Owens said, I don't trust him, but I trust you. I don't think I've ever heard that line in wrestling. Like, it really well done, really well thought out. Cody's a star. Sammy and Kevin are playing kind of the next level stars to perfect. And Jey Uso, they have made him something. And so you got to give, and Dom's great too. So A+ all around, 100%.
Yeah, Justin, I saw you shaking your head. You're a Family Matters guy.
I'm a Family Matters is one of my favorite 90s sitcoms. Before there was Hulu and all these services that would, archive all these shows from the past and you could just, binge watch them. I, in the early aughts, paid some shady money to a shady person who shipped me DVDs of all the Family Matter episodes. Clearly that they spent a lot of time around a VCR and got them all in order for me. That's where my Family Matters fandom goes. So I popped huge at that reference. And look, WWE's audience tends to skew older, so I'm sure people got it. Hell, I just made a Taxi reference a few minutes ago, and that was that was 15 years in front of that. So I thought everybody kind of hit in this opening. A lot was accomplished. Obviously you get Dom's heat out there. I like Cody kind of hinting and teasing, kind of planting a seed of maybe some mommy and Dom problems later on. I keep saying that we could have a Judgment Day wedding. We could have a mommy and Dom wedding. And of course we all know how weddings end in wrestling. So it could be just, great shenanigans. But then the Kevin Owens stuff, as Matt touched on. So I thought a lot was accomplished. A lot of different creative paths were paved or continue to be paved for them to go down as we keep rolling on here.
Well, Cody made an interesting point. He said he brought up the fact that Rhea never actually says what Dom and Rhea are, which has always been kind of interesting for the viewer. But when in that situation, it was sort of a moment of, yeah, Dom, what are you guys? If she's not saying it, and if she's quote unquote looking at Jey Uso, I almost said Jey Urkel on accident. By the way, I only mentioned that I know Family Matters. That was what was how did the theme song go?
Days go by. It's a bigger love of the
family. Yeah, that was a good one. So, I like Family Members, but I had to look it up. The show ended when Dom was 1 year old, so I don't know if he would have gotten the reference. Is all. But yeah, that kind of set the tone for the night. I am a big fan. Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. You ever thought about how ironic it is? His name's Dom. Like, don't you think her name should be Dom, and his name should be Sub?
I think it is when the lights go off. Bow.
That's all I got.
Wrestling Inc. After Dark. We move on to and I don't usually highlight the non super chats. Well, I highlight a lot of them, but I don't call it out. Urkel transcends time. I love that. But Kofi Kingston has a match with Ivar. Due to injury, we're getting one-on-one instead of the 2 out of 3 tag match. And for what feels like a very low-stakes match, Justin, these guys burned it down. I felt like they were on a PLE here. Ivar, is he the next big thing?
Well, I don't know about that, but he certainly was given opportunity. He maximized the minutes, right? He's always in a tag team situation, but here you get a chance where you got to go one-on-one. And I know Eric, his partner, who wasn't there. I know he's a good. I've worked with him. I've seen him in the independent scene, so I know that he can go out there and can work a match as a singles if asked. To. I'm not as familiar with Ivar, so seeing him go out there and the way the crowd popped. Both the anticipation as he's getting himself to the top rope and then the execution of the moonsault, and then all the stuff that led up to that. I mean, the crowd did not lie. They were into this for what's somewhat of a, it's kind of somewhat random. You don't show up there thinking you're going to see Ivar in a singles one-on-one match against Kofi. That's just, because we don't see the Viking Raiders in singles matches. This exceeded expectations. And like you said, it kind of felt like a PLE kind of quality match. So for those who watch or listen to this podcast and truly rely on us to steer you into what chapter of Raw to go check out and not fast forward you through, I would certainly recommend watching this match because it is very entertaining.
Matt, of course, once Triple H took over, there was a lot of credit given to him over the stories that were being told and the way narratives were being presented. And I think for good reason, they've been great. But something that also seems to have happened, matches like this, where we kind of take for granted, Raw's been putting on, Raw and SmackDown had just been putting on banger matches regularly, even if it's between two guys who maybe you don't think of as being the two guys that are going to put on a banger match. I mean, they're great wrestlers, but let's be honest, this is kind of a throwaway match in the grand scheme of things, but this was fantastic.
Yeah, you alluded to it. They got some time, right? They got some time. Kofi's always good. Ivar and Ray Rowe, they are really good wrestlers, right? And I know, if you ever meet Ray Rowe, dude is a Viking for real. He loves Vikings. When I met him and Sarah Logan, they were talking about they're having a Viking wedding, and you have never seen two more excited people in the world, to talk about their Viking wedding, right? But just because you like Vikings, maybe doesn't mean you should be Vikings. You know what I'm saying? It's a very almost dead on arrival gimmick to me, and they do their best, bless them, because Ivar's great. Ray Rowe is really good tag team, but it's never come off sincere. It takes you out, and when you have matches like this, it's just a reminder, oh yeah, dude, Ivar's one of the best big men maybe ever. He is fantastic, but you don't see it because of this very cheesy, hokey gimmick. They're Vikings. Are they really Vikings? Are they people that love being Vikings? Do they have real names? There's no other gimmick like it in WWE. They're very outliers. So it's very easy to forget how good they are. Kofi's always great. Not surprised they had a great match when they had time because they're both really good.
Yeah, Matt, you said something that has always been one of my issues with the Viking Raiders. I love the Viking Raiders as a team. I love them in NXT. I thought they were fantastic. And I don't know why, but once they came to the main roster, that is to what you're alluding to, where I started having the questions of, so wait, do they know what a cell phone is? Are they actual Vikings, or are they people dressing up as Vikings?
Did they get here on a boat? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do they eat just big, big drumsticks? I don't know.
Right. Am I supposed to believe they drove here in a car, or, which sounds silly to say, but because you don't ever hear them really act normal, or say, I don't really know how to gauge.
It's very Duke the Dumpster Drosy, right? It's very is this a garbage man who wrestles in a garbage man gimmick? You know what I'm saying? And same with these, this guy loves being garbage man so much, he wants to wrestle as a garbage man, And same with the Viking Raiders, what's the story? Because everybody else looks like a person,
Right. And I think that's what it is. Because, again, I don't know why. In NXT, for some reason, it just never bothered me when they were in NXT. And that's, I don't know why. Maybe it's the presentation. It's oh, yeah, they're the
Well, in NXT, weren't they still War Raiders?
Yeah, they were War Raiders.
So I think that while they might have, I think there wasn't, there wasn't the push of Viking. Viking wasn't in your face, as Matt said. It becomes dead on arrival. There was just, it was just these guys. They might have had a little bit more of a different kind of appearance. They might have, not dressed like normal, but they just calling them War Raiders just felt like, okay, here's two badasses that are going to cause destruction that could probably, survive the apocalypse. But here you have, like Matt said, it brings you back to early '90s occupational WWE, where it's how do you take it seriously? Even though, to his point, there's some real influence and interest from Valhalla and from Eric, but it comes off too cartoonish in the way that WWE presents it.
Yeah, especially in a world where, as Matt, as I believe you alluded to, there's no one else like that. It's not like we're in the world where there is an Undertaker and an Acolytes. And
there's no Norseman to feud with, bro. Like, it's just you out there, man. That's it. Yeah. It's just you. Like, there ain't no Greek gods. There's nobody. It's just you and real people.
Yeah, so it feels out of place, I guess. We get Ricochet versus Shinsuke Nakamura. First, Ricochet cuts an interview saying he's not going to be a pawn. Then when Nakamura comes out, Seth Rollins interrupts his entrance and security has to separate the two. We finally get the match. It's a heated one. Eventually, Nakamura is about to use a chair, but Ricochet avoids it and uses the chair himself, getting DQ'd. Ricochet is upset he lost, and then he gets attacked by Nakamura. After destroying Ricochet's leg, Rollins comes out to make the save, but he gets his back messed up and security separates the two again. Later, Rollins says that he's taking his hands off the wheel and Shinsuke can name the time and the place. Matt, I feel like individually I liked every piece of this, but it feels like there's a lot of stuff that happened in here. I feel like this is where Jimmy Corderas would use one of his famous lines, 20 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound bag.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff. It is starting to work for me. Like, at first, it's like, why would the challenger refuse a match? But he's playing head games. He's playing the long game to get the match. I don't know what Ricochet's doing in there. I have no idea, except he is being used precisely as a pawn. It's interesting with Ricochet. It's like, I watch him, and I'm like, that's not the same dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, the guy that I used to watch named Ricochet before WWE, dude, that guy was amazing. I can't even tell, I guess the WWE style or whatever. And I'm like, man, I wonder if he left WWE, if he would go back to being as good as he was, or if he's just going to wrestle this style forever. Because I can see why the fans don't get behind him. I can see why the company doesn't get behind him. He's not that appealing as presented now. But let's not forget, there was a time where Ricochet was thought of as maybe the greatest wrestler in the world.
Yeah, Justin, I'm behind Ricochet. I want Ricochet to do well. I just, every time he's in a situation, it's like, maybe this is his opportunity. Do you think this is Ricochet's opportunity to ascend, or is he just a pawn in this situation?
Yeah, he's just a pawn. I mean, I think we can go back over the history of the last 20 years, and you can find guys who, have some crazy athleticism, have ability, and they get kind of, like I think like there was a period of time briefly, like Evan Bourne was like got the team with John Cena, and there's other examples as you go through. If we really sat down and went through the encyclopedia, I think Ricochet, to kind of to Matt's point, maybe some things have changed up. I think the biggest thing probably that falters him, and we kind of saw it unfortunately in his biggest chance to shine, which was the program with Logan Paul. He can't really talk you into the building. He is somebody, if you have somebody who over in the room who's not watched pro wrestling a lot, you want them to see Ricochet. I mean, every time my wife walks in the room, if she sees Ricochet doing something, she normally, has an O or, a gasp or whatever, because he does some impressive things, but he doesn't talk you into the building. I don't feel, hell, the entire build to that match with he and Logan Paul was all about just doing something that was going to go viral. But even verbally, Logan Paul really kind of punked out Ricochet. So I think he's a pawn. I think he's there. I think he's a good attraction to kids. I think he's a good attraction for if you want somebody to see the athleticism and see what these guys can do. But he's not going to be doing any commercials or crossover or anything like that. He just doesn't come off that way. He just doesn't come off that way. So, he just, especially when you have a big personality like Seth Rollins out there, I don't believe at all Shinsuke is going to take this title from Seth Rollins, but I feel like they're giving us at least the best presentation of Shinsuke and trying to make him be serious and make him come off and look like a threat. But yeah, I mean, Ricochet's a pawn, but there's no other way around it.
I think one of the things that made this seem messy to me was that I don't understand why Nakamura didn't just get the win instead of the DQ win and then attack. Like, it wasn't like Ricochet got one up at the end either. It was just, I don't know, it was a weird.
Well, and Ricochet is the face too. So for him to be the one that gets disqualified because he used the chair.
Yeah. I think it's to show that Shinsuke is the king of mind games and that he can get even the level-headed, cool, very one-note talking Ricochet to snap, But like on the show The Wire, they said pawns stay pawns forever. They never become kings. And I think that, unfortunately, is the case with Ricochet in WWE. I'm glad he's included because I like to see him have some screen time. But at the same time, I like what they're doing with Seth, and I can't wait till it moves on to something else.
As we move on, before we do, yes, boy, I just want you to know I see your super chat. I'm going to wait till we get back to some more of the Dom stuff to talk about it so we can keep the show flowing. But for now, we're going to talk about Chelsea Green and Piper Niven versus Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. Chelsea tells Brian that she and Piper are besties, but doesn't even know where Piper's from. We get to the match, and it's cooking when Nia Jax comes out and destroys everyone. And as she leaves, she says it's open season. Justin, something I'm noticing about Nia Jax and her random attacks here is that it seems like she's always taking out the more dominant wrestlers, whether it be Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez, now it's a Shayna Baszler, a Piper Niven, all the people that everyone else would say they're not going to mess with.
No, I mean, I think she's 2-0 in terms of grabbing attention, stealing the scene of being out there. This week was body count. Hopefully, I assume it's all story. I think we probably would have heard otherwise, but I mean, I like that fact. This time last week we were talking about Nia and a reputation of is she safe in the ring? How is she perceived by the fans? How is she perceived by her peers? So I thought by giving Rhea a week off, we assume giving her a week off, but in storyline saying that she's been injured by Nia, that's a great impact for Nia's re-debut to the company, and also again it kind of trolls at the fans saying, oh, Nia hurt her, and so yeah, I mean, I think it's 2-0 for Nia so far. Again, as long as everybody legit is okay and we're all working, I think the presentation otherwise has been good.
Matt, Baby Ice with an interesting comment here saying Nia Jax is taking revenge on everyone who eliminated her in this year's Rumble. I honestly can't remember who all the people were that eliminated her from the Rumble. So I'm going to take your word for it, Baby Ice. Is Nia Jax working for you, Matt?
No. I mean, here's the thing is that I think I alluded to it last week. I don't know anything about wrestling. I've never been in the ring. I've never taken a bump. But I do get concerned when Nia Jax touches wrestlers and throws wrestlers around. I've seen people get hurt, And so when I see Shayna, okay. But I see her grab someone like Chelsea, who's someone who's had some injuries in the past, and I wince. Like, I'm worried about what's going to happen. And it looked a little bit like Chelsea was wincing too. Like, I hope, like last week when she hit Rhea with that bonsai drop, bro, like that was not the same bonsai drop she gave Shayna this week. This one was a lot more careful. I just worry that someone's going to get hurt. And also, I don't necessarily think she's the one to be going through this women's division like that. If they would have just waited like 1 month and done all of this with Jade Cargill, oh my God, I'd be much happier.
Justin, where do you think this leads for Nia Jax? Is this building to an eventual Rhea Ripley showdown, or do we not know where this is going yet?
I don't. Of course, when Rhea comes back on TV, she's going to have a bone to pick with Nia. But I think it's interesting they're letting Nia come back and run, and she's attacking heels, she's attacking faces. So, it might be tabled. It might be, they table when we get back to Rhea and Nia eventually. But I don't know necessarily if that's Nia's first. I don't know if Rhea is Nia's first premium live event match. Let's put it that way. You know, they might try to bide some time of really building Nia back up and letting her go through some people to then try to make her a real credible challenger for Rhea and Rhea's title, maybe in an event like a Survivor Series, if you know, because they do have obviously singles matches at that event still. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, it seems like they are committed, at least in these first 2 weeks, to having her. Who knows? She might continue to go through and plow through people, and then a Jade Cargill does show up, and that's an easy way to get a pop on a Jade. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I don't think that it's an immediate. We're going right to Nia and Rhea, because again, if you do that, that we then draw the question of, well, what are we doing with Rhea? Which side of the fence she's on? She's still in the top heel group that is Judgment Day. She still has a top heel boyfriend and Dirty Tom. Like, so I think there's some complications there that have to be sorted through. But yeah, Nia's on a tear, and yeah, I'll keep watching. I'll see what's happening.
Jey Uso is talking to Jackie, but Damian Priest interrupts to say Judgment Day is picking up an Uso, and Priest says, "Don't make me look bad. Give us a yes or no by the end of the night." Later, Jey approaches Sammy and KO, and Jey says, "Don't talk about me behind my back." And Sammy says, "Everyone needs to cool it, and good luck with your decision tonight." Matt, I love when there is a story that is told throughout an episode that has stakes to it. And this is such a simple way to do that. And the stakes are simple, but I was invested throughout the show. How did you like these segments and how they told the story?
So many times in the past when you have a storyline, especially the past, let's say, 15 years, you have a storyline, you either know what's going to happen, or you just know it's not going to go anywhere good. You're like, man, I've seen this before. It's going to be this, or it's going to be that. That's what's going to be. These segments, I don't really know what's going to happen. And I'm kind of interested to see either way. So it crushes my eternal wrestling pessimism and cynicism. And I'm glad to see it. That's what the Bloodline did too. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going, wow, this is a story. I want to see what's going to happen. And guess what? I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen. You know, on a 3-hour Raw, which is hard to do.
Yeah, Justin, it's really kind of a magical thing that when you have a situation where you don't know which way Jey is going to go, but I'm already kind of fantasy booking both ways. And it feels like no matter what Jey does, I'm going to be okay with it.
Yeah, first off, we earlier in the night when there's that opening promo, I love the line that was said, I think it was by Kevin Owens, how Jey Uso is just one, what do you say, one eyeshadow or whatever line away from being in the Judgment Day. I wish I could remember the line verbatim. I'm not doing it justice by not being able to recite it verbatim, but it was good. No, like, you know, kind of just finishing what Matt was saying, I agree. This, and we've seen different little spurts, spurts of this beyond the Bloodline in the past year, and a lot of that has been when Triple H is the one who is day to day there in the weeds, as Vince would say. It does get me concerned that we're hearing more of Vince, calling in more. He's getting more involved. At least it's becoming known he's being more involved in changes and things are creative, because that's where you muck up and you don't get to follow through on these stories when you start changing and rearranging. But when you have a plan and you kind of have, in pro wrestling, the best thing you can do is know where it's going to end and then book backwards. And if that can be held true and we can, follow this out, then I agree. There's a lot of intrigue and of where all these different characters and dynamics can go. I just hope that they stay true to it and we don't start, rewriting stuff for the sake of, quick, 1 week, 1 week attention spans of, we got to do this week, and then to throw all this off course. Because I agree, it's kind of intriguing to have all these characters and again the dynamics and how they're all intersecting.
And it's interesting. I'm sorry, but
no, go ahead.
It is interesting that wherever you see this, you see Sammy and Kevin. They're really good at this. They're really good at getting all these points across and about conveying emotion and conveying indecision and conveying worry and fear and happiness. They're really good at this. And both of these, Judgment Day and Bloodline, Sammy and Kevin, if you think about, Kevin was very involved in that Bloodline and getting everything over, and he's helping a lot here.
We can have a whole discussion on it, but I always say when people talk about, like, could this guy be the top person in a company, or could this be the guy and things like that, I always say to myself, can they do the things, Matt, that you just alluded to? Can they express concern and fear and convey these different emotions and tell these different stories. Because just being good in the ring or saying good words in a promo in this day and age isn't it. You got to be able to take things to a different level, and that's what these guys can do, and that's why the Bloodline's been so popular.
Well, and to the point of Kevin Owens, and we can forever say this and hold it to his resume, Kevin Owens is the guy that got Stone Cold Steve Austin after 20 years to come out and be willing to have a match at WrestleMania. I mean, they were kind of very careful in the phrasing. They didn't so much say match. They kind of talked about fight. You didn't, but and Kevin largely did that on his own. I mean, Austin had one pre-tape announcement, kind of officially accepting the challenge. But I mean, it was largely Kevin Owens doing monologues to a camera with emotion and whining and intensity, and did all that. And then, of course, they went out there and of course, especially a credit to Steve at his age, they went out there and delivered. Steve did not look like an old man. It did not look like it was like a cheap, phone in that you might see from a 50-year-old legend on the indie circuit, doing just his 3 signature moves. So I think forever we could hold that to say Kevin Owens, to your point of that question of can you be a top guy? Kevin Owens can certainly hold a top spot and do all of those key things.
100%. We move on to Chad Gable, who asks Adam Pearce for another shot at Gunther, but Bronson Reed shows up and says that Chad Gable needs to get to the back of the line. So they decide to have a match. Big clash of styles here. But size of Reed is just too much, and Bronson Reed gets the win. Justin, I feel like this was I feel like you got to be conflicted here because I feel like you're a fan of both of these guys. Was this a surprise? Was this an upset, though, that Bronson got the win?
I'm a fan of both guys, but I have it written right here in my notes. Upset. That's an upset to me. I mean, I know Chad Gable came up short in conquering and getting that IC title, but he still he's been on a hell of a singles role in the way he's been presented. And obviously, we've talked about Bronson Reed, trying to find what the track is for him. I think this is an upset. I think this is a sign of, again, if we stay consistent to our booking and we don't start having crazy last minute changes, I think this is a sign that we're going to start seeing Bronson Reed having, again, matches every week. And there's going to be a purpose. There's going to be a point. There's going to be an objective of, okay, we're starting to build him up as a heel that's going to rise through the ranks. I absolutely upset.
Where do you think this is going, Matt? Because he's facing Otis next week. My first thought, and we'll get into a promo that happened a little bit later, but my first thought is, does this mean he's Gunther's next guy? Because he just beat the guy that almost beat Gunther. But that doesn't seem to be where it's going. Where do you think this is going with Reed? Is this just heating him back up for whatever may be next, or do you think they have a plan for him?
I think it's heating him up to go against Gunther. I think he goes through Otis this week, and, he seems to be the guy. Like, they don't seem to have anybody else. And as far as poor Chad Gable goes, we were talking last week what he should do. I think Mr. Adam Pearce, what he said was like a shoot comment. He is at the back of the line, man, because he lost. Like, man, it's like last week, they could have made a choice. This week, they could have made a choice. But each of the choices they made these 2 weeks defined down Chad Gable and just kind of showed what he did that one time was a flash in the pan. They might have plans for him, but I wouldn't bet on it. I would bet his daughter cried for no reason.
Oh, that's heartbreaking when you phrase it like that. But you might be right. I mean,
there was not a dry eye in the Gable house tonight. I'll tell you that much.
No, Matt, it wasn't for nothing. In 10 years from now, she's going to be training and she's going to get to the performance center. It's going to be like a Dirty Dom situation. She's going to be coming into the business, and we're going to be able to call back in the video archives to this moment. And no, it's all a long term booking.
It's very long term play. Becky Lynch is walking in the back and runs into Akira Tozawa, who gives a great fist bump, by the way. She then cuts a promo about wanting to elevate the NXT title. So she's going to defend the title against just anyone, apparently. Natalya comes out and cuts a great promo, and we get a match with Becky Lynch getting the win. Matt, if this was another company, this is AEW. We cover AEW, and I hear all the time, too many titles. Why is Ring of Honor defending titles on Dynamite, et cetera, et cetera? Yet here I am on Monday Night Raw watching an NXT title get defended. Do we need to have the same energy for this situation as we do when AEW has Ring of Honor on their shows?
Probably more, because NXT, although Ring of Honor is not undefined as far as its relationship to AEW, as far as stature, NXT is clearly a developmental title. It's cool she won it, but what's it doing on the main roster? I will say the too many titles thing. I'm an old person who used to watch world-class wrestling and Crockett wrestling. They had a lot of titles, and they had not that many wrestlers. Like, they had like 30 wrestlers and 9 titles. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really the titles. It is, you know, watch the first Starrcade. Like, every single match has a title, you know? So it's not about the title so much. It's about, I don't know. I don't think Natalya Neidhart should be battling Becky Lynch for the NXT title. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. I'm going to do an open challenge, and this young upstart who's never got her shot, Natalya, comes out. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Justin, I agree with everything Matt just said, but I want to also get your thoughts on this, as well as I want to get your thoughts on the promo. I felt like this was a hell of a promo by Natalya here. She had all the things you're talking about with Kevin Owens. She had passion. She had fire. She felt like she was really into it. Thoughts on that, as well as NXT title being defended on Raw?
Yeah, I mean, Natalya is the ultimate company woman. I mean, she can and she has done it all. I mean, it's kind of it's unfortunate that every time that she's in a program of feud, I kind of feel like she's just there to help, you know, elevate or be a kind of a test for the office to say, hey, is so and so ready? Or, you know, like, I don't feel like they're ever, you know, they haven't done it yet. They're never going to give her the ball and let her run with it. I mean, and she's from the Hart family, for Christ's sake. So, and from what I understand, she wasn't even the first. This was a change. She wasn't originally the one slated to even answer this challenge. So take all that for whatever it's worth. You know, it's funny you asked about the titles, because I found myself asking myself the same thing while I was watching. You know, we saw Dom out there early in the night, and Dragon Lee's in the crowd, and they're promoting that match on Raw next week. The Dragon Lee is and, you know, and then we have this title now with Becky. Because I found myself, because I'm often critical about, I'm like, the ROH titles being on Dynamite, it you know, muddies up, and it's a few things. I think some of it's apples to apples, and then some is apples to oranges. It depends on what we're talking about. I think the apples to oranges is, I don't mind seeing some of the NXT title crossover. One, when you have somebody like Becky Lynch who's main event of Mania, so okay, she's holding this title, so I guess the idea is for the rub, and so she's holding the title. I know who Becky Lynch is. Where it's apples to oranges there, because when I see AEW have some ROH people come on holding ROH titles, they're people that are very unknown. There's no backstory. That's most of the audience doesn't know who they are unless you're a part of the hardcore niche. So that's the apples to oranges. But it's also apples to oranges on Dynamite's 2 hours. They rush and throw 20 pounds and 10 pounds. Raw does have 3 hours. They do have more time. But it is fair to say that, you know, NXT is still developmental. While I like them trying to do the crossover, it can be confusing to an audience member, especially if you're more casual and you're like, well, wait a minute. Becky Lynch was, again, she's been main event of WrestleMania. Now she's going on this small, you know, NXT studio wrestling with $1 million budget. Why is she on that? You know, so there is some disconnect. I will acknowledge that this is a little bit of it's an interesting situation to let this play out. So I'll see. Natalya's promo is great, but I am going to watch and see, because I think you could run the risk of having too many titles in there. But kind of what Matt was alluding to, if you do the right job of building up, even if it's just a 2-week build to a match, you know, you have a Dragon Lee in the front row scouting, and you make a big deal that he's fighting Dom for this title next week on Raw. If the titles matter, if you can make them mean something to the fans, then it is a different scenario. That is, again, probably one of my complaints again with the ROH on AEW, is I feel everything is just thrown together. It's darts going against a wall because it's Tony Khan trying to make, you know, the sexiest matchmaking, but there's not necessarily a story or an emotional investment behind it.
I will say one of the things that WWE does here is they do use it to try to promote what's going to happen on NXT, which is a smart move there. And
it's working.
And it's working. The numbers are going up.
Yeah, numbers don't lie.
It is interesting, though, Matt, to your point, this title that's about building the future, and you have two like industry veterans who have been a part of WWE forever fighting for the title. Why is it, Matt, I'll just throw this to you. Why is it every time someone says they want to raise the prestige of a title, their first thing they do is, I'm just going to defend it against whoever walks out through the curtain next? That feels like the opposite. That feels like everybody gets a shot.
It's one of these things. I was talking to a AEW executive today about the insistence on using music when people walk out. Like we were having this DM debate, It's one of these tropes we're used to as wrestling fans, but if you're not a wrestling fan, if you're casual, it takes you out completely. Like what did the heel stop by and ask the sound guy and video guy to set his stuff out to do a run in to stop the finisher? No, he did. How did I want to do an open challenge? I was teasing the FTR guys, like, what is the FTR? They have an open challenge. Like, what's the process? Is it a race to the door?
Right.
Give us something. Give us some kind of way to believe. Don't make us feel stupid. Like, give us a way to believe and give fans who are trying it not that moment where they see Vikings in the ring or they hear music start for no reason, or they see, oh, well, sometimes they'll do a 3-week build for someone to get a title shot. A guy carries around a case for 9 months to get a title shot, but yet open challenge, boom, little continuity would be nice.
Yeah, I agree. It's just one of those things. I feel like that's the first thing everyone does when they say they want to build up a title is open challenge.
Matt, let me ask you this. I'm curious to your opinion. Would you prefer the open challenge of all the faults that you just outlined there? Of who gets to the door first, who can get the sound guy to hit play. Which one's worse, that or the, okay, you have to beat the champion in a non-title match, and then that makes you the number one contender?
That's worse. That's absolutely worse. It goes against all my instinct and everything I was told as a wrestling fan growing up. If you beat the champion in a non-title, think about if you were like in the Super Bowl or something, and you had to beat the champions to face the champions. Bro, you're the champions. You know what I'm saying? Wow. You're the champion. There's no, like in boxing, the best parallel, right? If you have to beat Floyd Mayweather to face Floyd Mayweather, people will be calling you the champion,
Yeah, plus the idea is you want to pay to see the champion lose, not, oh, I saw him lose, let's see if they lose again.
It takes especially the heel who it usually happens to.
I would say, though, terrible booking Jack here. I almost forget the match. I want to see everyone rushing the curtain and see them all fighting to see who gets to go out first. I want to see that whole scenario play out of every open challenge. And just
I think the way it works is they all go to Vince's office and the last one to sneeze gets the match.
We got a couple more segments here. Dom and Dragon Lee, they have a quick stare down, and Dom is mad Nia Jax isn't being punished, and actually makes a good point there. And they're going to have a match next week for the North American title. This is where Yes Boy gets rewarded for being so patient with the super chat. I appreciate you saying, hey, Justin, we'll throw this to you. A way to break up Dom and Rhea that would make Rhea more over and Dom gets nuclear heat is, what if we find out Dom has been cheating on Rhea and she lays him out, but who would be the other female gents? Justin, I'll throw that to you.
What if Dirty Dom was getting freaky with new hire Jade Cargill? I don't know. I don't know. Jay's popular on the tongue right now. But actually, to Yes Boy's point, I thank you very much for that super chat. It was very generous. I do think, again, I said earlier, I eventually, I feel like it's easy creative fodder to have the, to get a little sports entertainment in here and have the wedding between these two eventually. And of course, no wedding ever, goes without issues. And so that would be one avenue that would allow you to continue to babyface Rhea, which the fans seem to be trending towards wanting to cheer her. She's just so interesting. She's so good. There's an aura of unknown and mystery about her, and dare I say even like a little bit of a sex appeal about it. Like I feel like she's getting more cheers, but they all want to see her just kick this little twerp to the curb. So I feel like that would be very on par to babyface her and to double down on his heat that he talks about, oh, mommy, and meanwhile he slid into somebody else's DMs along the way. So I don't think that's a bad booking, very preliminary level booking pitch. And then in terms of who the woman is, I think that would lend itself for it to be somebody new, and that somebody new would then be somebody who is challenging to Rhea. So maybe. Who knows? Maybe Yes Boy just maybe we just started booking a Road to Mania situation feud here.
We got a few suggestions. Liv Morgan, Nia Jax. I like Jade though, because Jade it's got to be someone that Rhea's threatened by.
Yeah, it needs to be. No disrespect to Liv, and I'm a huge fan of her as a performer and a person. But you need somebody physically of threatening stature to Rhea.
Yeah, that's what I would think, anyways. But Matt, any thoughts on that? You want to fantasy book anything?
Yeah, I do actually. What if it was Finn Balor? Like, what if he cheated on Rhea with Finn Balor? It's 2023.
Yeah.
You want to make the news? Let's make the news. You know what I'm saying?
Oh boy.
You want to get viral?
Yeah.
Let's get viral.
Oh boy.
Let's make it a normal thing in this world. You know what I'm saying? It's 2023. Can you imagine? I'm just saying. Definitely, they'll never do that in a million years. But probably, Nia seems to be the right choice for that, because Jade does not need Dom to start out with. Jade can be have the creative that she's going to have without involving Dom. So I think Nia is perfect. I think everyone hates Nia. Oh my God, Nia and Dominic together. Just imagine them coming out like the king and queen of the world.
Yeah. And for the record, me saying "oh boy" to Matt's suggestion, that's not me. That's not me saying "oh boy" in a homophobic. It's me saying "oh boy" whenever WWE has flirted with doing a male gay storyline.
It has not gone well.
Yeah, that's my "oh boy." I have nothing against.
Don't you dare besmirch Chuck and Billy.
Yeah.
But notice what happened though. It's 2023. Like 2023, Chuck and Billy guy was in the ring when the fans chanted "he is gay, he is gay" to Anthony Bowens in a positive way, clapping out of their seats, So I'm just saying, maybe it's time to think that things like that might happen. And Finn might be the guy for that too. So, who knows?
Oh, Nikita Lyons is another one that they're throwing out there.
That's not bad, actually.
That's not bad at all. We got Tommaso Ciampa saying that he's sick of being patient and Gunther has what he wants. So he gets a quick win over Vinci, making him tap. And Gunther's not happy about it. Matt, what are the odds Ciampa becomes the next Intercontinental Champion?
0.0. It's but Hunter always liked Ciampa. Like Hunter, Ciampa's definitely a Hunter guy, but I'm not sure where he stands now. Don't we all just want to see DIY get back together? Isn't that what we all want to see?
I feel like that's what a lot of the people, at least on my Twitter timeline, want. And I feel like they could use tag teams. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, it'd be good to see Ciampa get some airtime. Like Matt said, he's somebody that Triple H likes. But this is just buying time and extending weeks of Gunther's title run again until we get positioned towards a big event, whether it's Survivor Series, whether it's Rumble, for him to have a real threatening challenger where he could potentially have his title run in. Because like I said on this program, on this podcast, I fully can book him in Mania, not as IC champion, but in Mania having a match against like a Brock Lesnar.
I don't think Tommaso Ciampa is going to win the IC title, but I would love to see those two have a big match with time to make it happen. They had Bernie saying they had one in NXT. And I feel like I remember that, but I can't for some reason. Like, I feel like that stat's right, but for some reason I can't remember the match.
I know I trust Bernie. I'm sure he's like our official Tony Reale stat boy on here. I trust him. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but that's to the point of where it was done in front of a much smaller audience. So it could be a
lot of us fairly were out of NXT by the time that happened. Once the multicolored came in, a lot of us were out.
NXT shook a lot of people when they made that very rough transition.
But to their defense, it's shaken out as it's starting to won both viewership and it's starting to like translate it, and they are actually doing the best practice and simulation of what it's going to be for you to be on Raw and SmackDown.
Oh, it's fantastic now. It's a great show now, I think. But it was just that first transition was it was rough. It was a rough switch.
And they switched nights, and they were getting beat by AEW. I mean, there was a lot of optics and things that didn't go well for them at the time.
We moved to Drew McIntyre versus Jey Uso. Drew Mac in white has to listen to the fans chant for Jey Uso, even though Drew fought for these fickle people for 4 years. How dare you all? But Drew's beating up Jey when Judgment Day comes out. The match continues, and Judgment Day tries to help Jey Uso, so Jey attacks the Judgment Day and eats a Claymore for his trouble and gets pinned. Post-match, Judgment Day attacks Jey. Drew has his thoughts of helping, but never does. Eventually, Cody comes out and makes the save. Justin, this was a story they built to all night, and I feel like they not only let me eat, but they also left me hungry for more.
Yeah, I mean, back to earlier, what we were all saying. I appreciate the story that's being woven and weaving through this entire night and this entire episode, and then week to week. I will say this feels like a great build to like what should be like a Survivor Series payoff of like the Judgment Day, versus these guys that Jey Uso's controversial and all these dynamics of these other baby faces, but we're still 2 months away from Survivor Series. So I'm curious again to what the next PLE is early October. So I'm curious to what the exact outline and
what business does a good story have in late September?
Right, exactly. You're getting killed by football. What are you doing? Phone it in.
Matt, to your point, it's funny. This is usually just the doldrums of storytelling. It's usually just you got to grit your teeth getting through this part of the year, typically with pro wrestling. But now we've got The Rock showing up, John Cena's hanging out, Jade Cargill maybe showed up. They're actually doing some big stuff right now, and I think the tease of Drew McIntyre, what he's going to do next, Jey Uso now picking a side, but I feel like there's more to be told there.
Don't forget about CM Punk's going to return to Survivor Series in Chicago.
And CM Punk is going to take the title off of Roman Reigns at Survivor Series. I mean, there's a lot going on, Matt.
I can't wait. I think with that was so sincere. I think
that was delivered perfectly, by the way, Matt.
Thank you. I think with Triple H's term as the head of creative and in charge of bringing people back and stuff, it wasn't a long term, but it made a lasting impact in that I think people who aren't Triple H saw the effect it had and are kind of keeping up that thing, the same thing going. Like they saw, wow, look at the numbers that this kind of storyline brings in. I like money. Let's keep making money, right? So they're that same process that maybe Triple H brought in. I think they're probably still using, and other people are getting the credit. This last segment, it wasn't I've seen hotter endings of Raws. But I don't know if I've seen a better written one. Like it was so many moving parts, yet nothing was too complicated. Everything rang true. You had a little tiny double turn with Drew and Jey Uso right in the middle of it. You had Cody coming out to be the guy. Everything really worked really, really well. We know where Jey stands, but meanwhile, Drew is kind of newly minted as this guy who not only has resentments, but won't do the right thing. Man, they knocked it out of the park, A+, because, again, what's the low point? Like 10 years ago? 10 years ago, a segment of that if they try to do it, it would have been terrible. It would have been the worst thing we ever saw. They have the details worked out. They have the actors worked out. The talent is performing perfectly. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do. Man, it told a story. I was actually impressed.
Yeah, and it's something that I think every character came out looking more interesting afterwards as well. It wasn't just like, well, someone had to lose, we're going to forget about them. The guy that won is now the star. I'm interested to see how Drew reacts next week. There's a tag team match with, I'm sure the implications of this main event are going to impact it next week. This doesn't mean that Kevin Owens is won over. There's a lot of stuff that's still just sitting there that I'm very interested in seeing. This was, I think it was awesome. I would say the low point was that moment the McMahons had to come out and say they were sorry about how bad it was.
And by the way, Baron Corbin's a piece of crap. Like what?
They totally threw poor Baron Corbin under the bus. Like it was
Poor
his
guy.
idea.
Yeah.
Poor Baron Corbin. But that covers the show. That was everything. Everyone in the chat, let me know what you thought of the show. But Justin, let me know your overall thoughts and where can the world find you online?
Yeah, overall, I thought it was pretty okay Raw. Like there's a lot, as we talked about, a lot of dynamics, a lot of stories are being built, characters being built, a lot of fantasy booking that can be done for, again, a mid-September show. I mean, they are putting more effort towards it than we've seen in the past. So certainly a lot of things to watch for. At Justin LaBar across the socials. Monday I'm here, Wednesday I'm here, Friday I'll bust it open on SiriusXM. Also hit me up on the socials. I'll give more information. Many of you have followed me for many years, dating back to my chair shot reality days. A lot of times I'm always in the suit. My wonderful stylist and fashion designer, David Allen, been with him since the ground floor up. Introduced him to some of the people in the WWE world. He took that and exploded. He is now John Cena's personal stylist. We have another David Allen fashion show coming up here in Pittsburgh next month where you can buy tickets into attend. It is a hell of a guest list between the pro wrestlers and the athletes and the actors that are going to be part of this, and myself. Very out of class, but I'll be there sharing the stage. If you want some details, hit me up on socials at Justin LaBar, and I will let you know how you can buy tickets or how you can watch it. Fashion show next month, the David Allen fashion show. It's going to be it's going to be one that you want to check out. And then if you do have a love for looking your best fashion wise, I can show you a lot of the new products that they got coming out for men's fashion. So,
man, I gotta fly out to Pittsburgh and go get
some
new suits.
I was part of the very first fashion show myself. Bad News Barrett at the time. Jonathan Coachman, Mojo Rawley with a New Day. It was a great time, and it's only grown since then. So you got to come out.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Definitely follow Justin for that. Matt, how about yourself? Overall thoughts on the show, and where can the world find you online and what you're working on?
Overall thoughts on the show. You got to understand, like a 3-hour Raw is usually so hard for me to watch. And like even Justin said, it's an okay show. We're talking about, I remember back when I used to be on Keller's Torch show. Every week was just like, oh, this is so bad. How did I get through it? You guys remember those years. The 3-hour show with this many commercial breaks, it's almost impossible to have an entertaining show. They did a great job. They're doing a great job. And what you said about being a star, I noticed this when Triple H took over. Everybody is always in a better position and is a bigger star than they were a few months ago. I thought it was pretty good. Love being on Wrestling Inc. You can follow me at Matt Koon Music. I'll be in and out, I think, next week. I'm not sure if I'm here, but I'm definitely not done with Wrestling Inc. Love being here with you guys, and we'll probably do it again. And thanks, everybody, for listening and watching and following on Twitter and all that stuff. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call you special guest even when you've been on for like 5 years. I'll still make special guest. Always good chatting with both you guys. I want to thank everyone who's in the chat. Oh, the lurkers as well, the ones who are just hanging out. Always appreciate you. But also Blue Chew, Tut Graf, Max Feldman, Bernie, DC, MDB999, Ricky Zaldivar, Dream Realm Studios, Low Vision Technology, Baby Ice, and everyone else, Jordan Lott. Thank you guys so much for coming through. You can follow me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. And the next big thing, well, I'm going to be on Wrestling Inc. all week. I'm doing NXT tomorrow and AEW on Wednesday. But I'm also going to be doing commentary for Prestige Wrestling this Sunday. It's coming up fast this Sunday, so check that out on IWTV. Gonna have some really fun matchups there, and it'll be worth your time. Talk about a sales pitch. That does it for us, and we will see you next time for the NXT After.